What up, my fellow Knicks fans? This is your guy Marcellus Ease, and don't panic quite yet. Now, as the fall weather and the time zone begins to switch up, you already know Knicks basketball is truly back. And in this past week, we've seen a preview of what's upcoming this season, but Tibbs doesn't want to throw the whole playbook away quite yet. So right here, we're going to touch base on a few concepts playing out with Josh Hart, Miles McBride, Pacome Dadiet, and of course, the guy who just made his way across the river from Flatbush, Mikal Bridges. I'm not going to say no more. Let's just get to it.
I tell people all the time, you ain't see nothing or experience nothing until you in the garden when it's rocking. You understand? When it's rocking, there's no better place in the world to be in.
Alcohol, right?
Now this season, things are going to be quite interesting for our guy, Mr. Candyman himself, Josh Hart, as the starting unit does need a player like him who brings plenty of intangibles to this unit. Because Anthony Towns, he's not necessarily a player who's known on the defensive end, especially him with being in this drop back coverage right here. The Knicks are going to need plenty of guys in that starting unit to go over the top and fight through screens, as they have Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. So all three of these guys right here is going to provide plenty of coverage, as you're going to see right here coming off this screen. So with Towns, you see how he drops back. The Knicks are going to need guys to apply defensive pressure from behind, because Towns, he doesn't necessarily keep his hand up, and he doesn't necessarily always have the best positioning to defend the pass or the alley hoop. So it's not like he has his hands up like a player like Rudy Gobert. Right here, as you can see, hands are not necessarily up, and he doesn't have the lateral quickness to recover. So players like Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges getting over these screens and just applying pressure from behind is going to be real important this season. So with Josh Hart, this is why I'm starting off on the defensive end in regards to his game, because this season, as we wait on Mitchell Robinson to make his return, it's going to be interesting to see how Tibbs maneuvers around these lineups, because it wouldn't shock me if the Knicks kind of go to a similar formula that the T-Wolves had done last season, which is playing two bigs. A combination of Rudy Gobert and Towns helped Minnesota achieve a top seed in the Western Conference. Just a quick side note, they had the ability to stick a big body on Jokic and also have Rudy Gobert defend. As right here, you're going to see Rudy Gobert act like he's going to double, and this is a role Mitch could play. But he really is going to defend this pass. It's sort of a fake right here. This is just a quick side note, as I don't want to get off track, but just when Mitch makes his return, these are some of the considerations that Tibbs might have when, depending on the matchup. Anthony Towns is not quite the rim protector, especially when he has to recover vertically, as Mitchell Robinson has shown in the past. And hopefully Mitch loses a little weight, kind of gets lighter on his feet, because we're forgetting when he first came into the league, this guy was closing out and blocking players at the three-point line. So long gone are those days. It's like a forgotten memory in a way. But if we could somewhat get that sort of Mitchell Robinson back, it could be kind of a nice 1-2 punch defensively with Anthony Towns. But that's just me getting off track. I can go on and on and on about that. But going back to Josh Hart, once again, the Knicks, they're going to need a lot of the intangibles that he brings. Just looking at some of the flaws of Anthony Towns defensively, and just adding him in the combination of Mikal Bridges along with OG Anunoby, it's a nice little combo. Here's another prime example of what I'm talking about right here with Towns on the drop back. As you see, OG is the one that's getting screened, but his ability to fight over this screen, it's almost like now with the Knicks, pick your poison. Teams like the Philadelphia 76ers are going to have multiple wing players who can score. They got to deal with Josh Hart, Mikal, and OG just fighting over these screens and not allowing Towns to get fully taken advantage of in this coverage. See OG, how he fights through it? Now he's going to apply some back pressure. And this is what Towns could work on this season, applying pressure in this area right here. Apply some sort of pressure, get in the way, have a hand up, another hand out, and also pay attention to your man. See, OG is going to apply that back pressure. So will Josh Hart and so will Mikal, especially Mikal with those long arms. OG, he's definitely going to apply that back pressure in case Kuzma right here tries to pull up. But right here, once again, this is where Towns has to at least learn how to apply some pressure here. Have a handout, swipe, have another hand up, try to prevent a shot so OG could recover and make this block. But this is why Josh Hart is in that starting lineup. One last example here of OG trying to get over this screen. Notice Towns' reaction to Kuzma right here. Kuzma's going to go ahead and take this shot. But you see, notice the pressure. There's no pressure right here at all. Not a hand up, a hand out, to, possibly tip this. But OG applying a lot of back pressure right here. Mikal has the same ability as well as Josh Hart. So Towns, with his defensive liability, it is being covered up by having these three guys on the floor. And also Mikal provides a back line of rim protection. Towns right here does not even contest. When it comes to the pick and roll defense, Towns could put a bit more pep to his step. He showed he could do it last year during the Western Conference semifinals against the Nuggets. He hedged on certain screens, showing that he could keep up with Murray. And when the season is on the line, he could move vertically. But just going through a course of an 82-game season, it's more than likely we're not going to see the same effort. So when it comes to Jay Hart, offensively, his numbers this preseason doesn't necessarily stand out. But he is providing a lot of intangibles, including the spacing. Just the decisions of him either knowing when to get in the lane or just pop out for a three. It's making a whole lot of difference. As we've seen Brunson this preseason look like Patrick Ewing in the paint. He's just getting to the rack at will. Now right here, Jalen Brunson is going to make his way to the weak side and Josh Hart is going to cut in. But as he cuts in, he actually stays down low. He could have made his way to the corner. Normally we see Quentin Grimes, that's his favorite spot to line up at. But watch right here as Brunson drives. See how he stays? That forces Gobert to stay. See, Gobert, normally if Hart was right here, he would have stepped up. But now because he's compromised, he has to defend the pass. Brunson gets an easier shot. Once again, it's small things like that doesn't necessarily come up on the stat sheet. But Josh Hart does help a lot with the spacing. He has a good feel for it. As Brunson and Towns run pick and roll, look at Josh Hart right here. Instead of camping out at the three-point line with Alexander, he's going to slowly bring him in. Pick and roll set. Brunson, as soon as he makes his turn, notice how Josh Hart applying a bit of pressure. He's actually going to keep Alexander with him. Alexander can't necessarily collapse and get in Brunson's way. Dante is going to serve as the low man right here, leaving Mikal open. But Alexander can't quite leave Josh Hart open right here. He has to stay with him because he's making his way in. You see, had he camped out at the three-point line, Alexander could easily have collapsed. He wouldn't even have to be in this position. He would just had collapsed this way. But because you see right here, Josh Hart is wide open for the pass, potential pass. He has to stay with him. Here's another example right here. Pay attention to Josh Hart as he's going to make his way all the way around, dragging his man with him. And he's eventually going to make his way into the post. Notice how Brunson is now driving. His man has his head turned, has to get back. Mikal doing the same thing, trying to drag Kuzma away from the paint. Brunson on this drive. Look at Josh Hart's man. See, he's so focused on Hart, he can't necessarily close out fast enough on either potential pass or even Brunson just attacking himself. So Brunson is kind of, in a way, left one-on-one here. But both players right here are occupied with Mikal and Josh Hart. So this is the importance of having these guys on the floor at the same time. And you look at OG also, guys who can move off ball, kind of do the dirty work. In a way, this is like the Knicks version of Derek White and Drew Holiday. Here's some more examples right here. Pay attention to Josh Hart. Right here, he's going to give Karl Anthony Towns some options. Nice cut in now. They were just not able to finish that play. But good idea regardless. Now, Josh Hart makes his way into the paint. But also, we got shooters way outside. Defenders are starting to worry about both. But check out Josh Hart. He stays patient. He doesn't necessarily quickly run out for a three. Him staying patient, Mikal making his runs right here to be more visible for Towns. Defenders got to pick and choose which one. But Josh Hart overall does a great job in creating a lot of opportunity off ball. He finds spacing all the time. As Jalen Brunson right here, he just misses him. It's wide open right here. Brunson misses him. Whether off ball or on ball, Josh Hart is always looking to create something for this offense. As right here, he fakes the screen, takes it himself, and provides a good look for OG. His numbers won't necessarily stand out like last season in the playoffs, but just pressure like this in transition, always applying rim pressure. This guy's always making cuts. And then you have Mikal and OG in the corners. Then you have Cat trailing at the end. This is lethal. But this open look right here is all because of him. And every contending team needs guys like this. We've seen the Miami Heat with LeBron James have Shane Battier. We see Drew Holiday and Derek White with the Boston Celtics. Dennis Rodman with the Bad Boy Pistons. Trevor Ariza with the Lakers. Tayshaun Prince with the Pistons also. Just historically, we've always seen these type of players that don't necessarily stand out on the stat sheet, but do provide intangible attributes to a championship team or just a team contending year in, year out. And a more recent person is Andre Iguodala of the Golden State Warriors. Okay, so for Mikal Bridges this season, things are going to be quite interesting because at times when Karl Anthony Towns goes up against some of these teams with larger and stronger forwards who could actually keep up with him, and he can't quite penetrate, at times he might end up disappearing. And just to further elaborate what I mean by at times that he could disappear, it's against teams that have, versatile players who can guard different positions, like Aaron Gordon in Denver. That's a strong, big forward. Teams like the Boston Celtics who have multiple forwards in Jalen Brown, and also players who can kind of guard different positions in Drew Holiday. Even standing at 6'4", he's a player who can guard at times even centers. So players in that archetype sometimes could give Karl Anthony Towns issues. And another player, for example, is Paolo Banchero, that type of archetype. So teams that have these type of players can sometimes give Karl Anthony Towns issues, especially if that shot is not falling. So he can't quite back down a lot of these players. And sometimes it leads to him being stagnant. So this is where Mikal Bridges could have possibly some time to shine as a Knicks secondary scorer. But the preseason has been rough, and I wouldn't hang my hat too much on it. Mikal is one of these guards who have been proven in the past, especially when he first arrived in Brooklyn, that he can run an offense. He can handle things in the pick and roll, especially when Brunson is sitting on the bench. He has a nice mid-range game. He could take guys to the cup. He could also attack closeouts. But during the preseason, I noticed that he missed a lot of three-pointers in transition. Once again, Tibbs is giving the players the green light to take shots very early in possessions. And this year's preseason sort of reminded me when RJ and Randle and Brunson had their first, regular season start going up against the Memphis Grizzlies. Guys looked like they didn't want to step on each other's toes. The hierarchy wasn't quite yet established along with the chemistry. Here's a prime example in another transitional play. Mikal, instead of settling for the three-point shot, he could attack. He could attack and he could even dunk it on people. So he does bring a brand new dynamics the Knicks have. I remember the days of the Knicks just being kind of clunky in transition, not having guys being able to finish. We have a nice little combo with OG. He could dunk. Mikal could also finish. And Josh Hart pushing the pace. Again, I wouldn't hang my hat too much on Mikal missing shots in the preseason, As right here, he shows even out of the post up, he can hit the fadeaway. He has such a just versatile game around the paint right here. It's just nasty. He can hit all kinds of fadeaways, floaters. He's a really great signing for the Knicks. Once again, a lot of his missed threes, if you notice right here, it's in transition. Good to see Tibbs giving guys the confidence to just have the green light to take these shots. The Knicks offense is finally modernized, looking like the Steve Nash Phoenix Suns with the pace and space. Right here, this is an interesting lineup with Tibbs putting Precious with the starting unit. Also, Towns and Brunson right here are given opportunity to run pick and roll on this side while everyone else crowds up here. But guys are going to have the options. Mikal right here. Notice how OG made his run down here, dragging his defender with him. And Mikal, he doesn't necessarily have to settle for these shots. He could attack the closeout. He easily could attack these. But just looking at the trends with the Knicks, they want to stay on track with teams as far as 3-point attempts per game. But this is easily a closeout that Mikal could easily attack right here. Pump fake and just drive in. He has that ability. There's just going to be so much opportunity for these guys this season. I mean, look at right here. Teams got to pick their poison. Brunson, Mikal, Towns. There's Brunson right here. When they collapse on him like this, see the defense? They're going to have to pay at some point. There's going to be open shooters. Even OG. Teams got to pick their poison. Long gone are the days teams can actually run that game on the Knicks, like in the Philadelphia 76ers with Kelly Oubre and Kyle Lowry and also Nick Batum. They sort of try to collapse on Brunson 24/7, even though he's still getting through that. This season, there's just going to be so much more opportunity, just so much better looks for Brunson. So it shouldn't come as a shock if he actually averages higher efficiency numbers and more points per game. Again, a lot of the missed shots that Mikal had during the preseason was in transition. Knicks definitely running a more faster pace, faster play styles than we've seen in years before. And guys are getting green lights to take shots even before guys are set up to initially either to get boards or to at least run a play. Right off the offensive board, a lot of these threes Mikal took is in motion. It's not an easy shot right there. Another transition three by Mikal, but check it out right here. He steps back right into that shot. A lot of his misses in the preseason came like that, where he's taking a lot of in motion and in transition shots. But I wouldn't hang my hat too much on that. It just shows his versatility. He can even take shots off the dribble. But he makes this one right here. But that exact shot right there is a lot of the three-pointers he missed during the preseason, just stepping back in transition into those shots. It's always been in motion, not necessarily just catch and shoot. One of the reasons Mikal's probably always catching the ball in a perpetual state of just motion, because he's one of these off-ball players that's constantly trying to find space to attack, creating for himself while not necessarily having the ball. And that's probably one of the reasons why in the preseason you see a lot of him just catching the ball, perhaps moving backwards at the same time to get in position to be behind the three-point line. He's constantly in motion. So as the season progresses, the Knicks chemistry will kind of get more on point. So guys are going to have more comfortability and just more situational awareness of where to be on the court. Again, it's early. I wouldn't hang my hat too much on this. Again, right here, Mikal very early in the possession. Not necessarily catch and shoot, always in motion. Again, right here, very early in transition. Check out Mikal. He's going to step right into that shot. Constantly taking these threes in motion. That last preseason, boy, I tell you what, some of the fan base had a bit PTSD with Mikal, but it's okay. We could be confident. The team is headed in the right direction. It's real early. It's preseason. But right here again, check out Mikal in constant state of motion when taking most of these shots, stepping back into the three. You know shit is bad when they're digging up Mikal archives after this game with sound bites talking about him working on his mechanics. Man, that Knick PTSD, I'll tell you what. That shit is something else. But it's okay. Once again, it's okay, man. We headed in the right direction. Right here, Mikal running with the bench unit. And it's going to be interesting to see during the season how things are going to work out with him and Towns along with that unit. If Mikal can actually run this offense with pick and roll with Towns and have possibly Mcbride taking shots. I'm not sure how often Kolek is going to play, but his 3-point shot, it's improving, but he still has much more improvement. Just overall how this bench unit is going to work, especially with Precious now being out to start it off. And this is all before Mitch comes back into that lineup. But once again, right here, Mikal stepping right into this shot, stepping backwards, taking another 3-point shot. A lot of these attempts kind of went this way during the preseason. But going back to the point of Mikal running this offense with Towns in a pick and roll situation, we didn't get to see too much of this in the preseason. But here it is with the starting unit. And Brunson, low key, I'm not sure if you fellas remember when he was down in Dallas with Luka running this position right here. Brunson got into his catch and shoot bag all the time. He has that in his arsenal. So when he got to the Knicks, his pull-up game got better off the pick and roll. And now with the way the Knicks are constructed, he has the ability to go back in his catch and shoot bag. So a pick and roll like this, compromising this defender right here, I believe this is Jordan Poole. Once Brunson gets more spaced out here, Poole is compromised. He can't really attack this spacing right here. We're going to see it play out. You see Brunson, he didn't get to his spot early enough. But had he been here a lot faster, Jordan Poole is completely compromised. He can't necessarily stunt in and block Bridges' attacking lane. Because once Bridges goes downhill here, this is his bag. Fadeaway shots from here, 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 elbows everywhere. He can kill you anywhere. Floaters. We see right here, compromised. Can't necessarily stunt in too hard because, again, Brunson has the ability to get into his catch and shoot bag, very similar to how it was in Dallas. But right here, the play kind of gets a little clunky. Now here's Bridges with the bench unit. And right here, Jericho Sims really off the pick and roll is not going to give him a lot of options. His defense is not necessarily perceiving him as a threat. Plus he has Precious out there. His shooters are in the corner. So there's no real threat to stop defenders from crowding up his attacking lanes coming off this pick. But with this very lineup, if you replace either Precious or Sims with Towns, this scenario right here is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out during the regular season. See right here, things get clunky because nobody's a real threat. There's no real threat off the roll, and Precious is not really a threat from out here. So defenders are able to clog up his attacking lanes. But Bridges in the past, especially when he first arrived in Brooklyn, he's proven that he can run an offense. The first 2 months, he was killing for the Brooklyn Nets. And that was the peak Bridges coming off that trade. As you can see a few examples here of him just running the offense and pick and roll and just showing off his versatility in scoring. Fadeaways from the paint, attacking in transition, running the pick and rolls, shooting threes, whether off the dribble or pull up. And the same thing even applied in his mid-range game. So Bridges showed off a very versatile package when he first arrived in Brooklyn. And going back to my initial point with Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns running pick and roll, this is going to allow Brunson to get back into his catch and shoot bag, as he was previously in that role playing alongside Luka Doncic. Playing alongside these ball dominant players like James Harden, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, it doesn't get talked about too much, but sometimes guys get reduced to a role to just being a catch and shoot guy. And you got to be one hell of a player to kind of get out of that mold, as we've seen Dwayne Wade did with LeBron down in Miami. And same thing to a degree for Kyrie Irving when he was in Cleveland. They were still able to get their points. But in reality, these ball dominant players really thrive having catch and shoot guys around them. So the Knicks offense this season will have some versatility in it, with Mikal Bridges having the ability to run a pick and roll and just being a threat from anywhere around the paint. But he doesn't have the passing ability that Luka has, of course, to make this pass while in traffic. But Brunson will have opportunities to be open from three, because not only Mikal's a threat, you got OG a threat from the corner. When defenses make their rotations, Brunson's going to have times this season where he's going to have the ability to catch and shoot. So the Knicks will have options. And Brunson, just being alongside a player like Luka Doncic, who can draw all this attention. Just look at the gravitational pull. And Brunson was able to get into multiple bags. As right here, he's going to attack the closeout into a step back three. You see, Luka allowed a lot of these guys to get into multiple bags with their perimeter game. The gravitational pull around him was so strong that, according to the stat sheet, he should have had way more assists, but just the number of opportunities that he generated counted way more than the assists that he actually got on paper. And all that opportunity allowed guys like Brunson to establish a foothold and have a place in the league. So this season is going to be a big year for Deuce Mcbride. He's our last homegrown Knick. I mean, him and Mitchell Robinson. And with the trade of Dante DiVincenzo going with that trade package with Randle, Deuce is really going to be on the loose this season. He's going to have plenty of opportunity. Even though this preseason has been kind of up and down for him shooting-wise, it really hasn't been as efficient as we thought. But there is a lot of progression from Deuce. One thing I've noticed with Deuce are kind of long gone are the days of just him operating maybe out of pick and roll or just getting the ball and just kind of playing hot potato or looking for the next man right away. He's actually letting the flow of the game come to him, and he's not afraid of reacting and creating opportunities for himself. He looks way more comfortable this preseason. I'm not going to lie. And we can't forget, Deuce made some big time shots in that Philadelphia 76ers series in game 1 and in game 2, especially going down the stretch in that fourth quarter. Last season, with the Knicks having all those injuries, just created so much more opportunity. As in the final stretches of that season, Deuce kind of stepped up when we had that West Coast trip going against the Golden State Warriors, Sacramento Kings. He stepped up big time, and it translated right into the playoffs. So our guy got locked in with a nice contract. He got a bigger role on the squad, and there's a lot of confidence Tibbs has shown in him by giving him some burn in the fourth quarter, going down key stretches. Deuce kind of had an extra bounce, a little extra pep this preseason. But off this pick and roll right here, he's going to attack the empty space. Not afraid to create for himself. Nice little jumper right there. Another pick and roll with Deuce right here. No hesitation. Straight up pulls up. You got to love the confidence. It showed throughout the preseason. He rejects the screen right here. Kind of patiently plays it out. And nice pass. Precious unable to finish, but that was a good look. Deuce right here in transition, creating for himself. And nice finish right here. Tell you, man. Deuce's preseason had an extra bounce to him. And when Tibbs mixed this in with Tyler Kolek, as soon as he settles into the NBA speed and just style of play, this is going to be a nice little combination. Kolek is going to penetrate. Mcbride with his better shooting now. Hey, this could be a little something, a little spark off the bench. And Tibbs is going to have options to mix in Mikal in there, a little Towns pick and roll in that lineup, or he could mix in Brunson, OG. This is going to get interesting this season. You can tell right here the three-point shot has improved. Look at Deuce, just straight up pulls up. Sheesh. There's always something about the Knicks just developing their own homegrown talent that hits hard with the fan base. And the way the NBA landscape is nowadays, teams are going to have to land on one of these late first-round picks to second-round picks. I mean, the college player that plays for about 3 to 4 years is valuable now, especially for these contending teams. And the Knicks kind of bit into that formula with drafting Tyler Kolek. And right here in transition, this is a prime example of it. Kolek always with his head up. And he's going to pass it to Deuce. No hesitation. Like I said, you gotta love the Knicks development. When this all comes together, I would say midway through the season, it wouldn't shock me if Tyler kind of gets acclimated a lot faster than we think. This could really pan out to be a nice bench unit, especially with guys getting better spacing. Deuce doesn't have to necessarily worry about defenses collapsing in if Tibbs mixes the lineups with Towns and Bridges out there, or even OG. So guys are going to get more breathing room to operate. And last but not least, Pacome, Dadiet. Man, it's like the summer of the French guys coming out of the draft. What's up with that? Adam Silver got to throw some of them investment dollars to them U.S. kids, man. Come on. But the Knicks overall with Pacome, this is going to be interesting because normally Tibbs doesn't really play young guys like that. And Pacome is progressing pretty fast, especially with his shooting. That's something that he struggled with during the summer league, where the three-point line overseas, I believe it's further in. So in the NBA, it's a little bit further out. Not by much, but it made a difference because it threw him off in the summer league. You can just tell. But I knew there was going to be an adjustment period. And now it's looking good going into the season. Now, Pacome, just like a lot of European players, they're actually taught to play off ball also. This is an issue that's plaguing a lot of the youth players coming out of the U.S. They're not necessarily taught how to play the whole game, whether it's posting up, how to move off ball, create for themselves, passing, etc., etc. But Dadiet, just like Mikal Bridges, is always moving constantly. Again, right here, Tibbs has an interesting lineup. He has Dadiet in with three of the starters, OG, Cat, and Brunson, with Cameron Payne in the corner. So 2 bench guys in, 3 starters, and guys are going to have a lot more breathing room to operate. I know Miles Mcbride must be jealous because when he first came to the Knicks, they didn't have this much talent for the younger players to actually come in and just have better spacing. As Dadiet is going to move off ball right here. Great pass by Brunson. This is a nice combination of players the Knicks have to consistently put rim pressure just with all the off-ball movement from Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Dadiet, even OG. And Brunson, a high basketball IQ player on top of it all. And then you got Cat possibly stretching the floor. So this is a very unique lineup Tibbs has to be very modern this season when it comes to his offense. So as Dadiet gets stronger, an area he's going to have to improve on is his ability to drive. He kind of gets clunky in driving scenarios. And even that dunk he had against the Hornets during the preseason, there was a slight hesitation from him there, but he's not all the way polished when it comes to that. It's something that he struggled with during summer league. But as his NBA body fills in, his ability to hold on to the ball and just absorb contact during some of these drives should be a lot better. The main thing is going to be for Tibbs to actually find minutes to play him. Him being a young player on a team that's championship bound with Tom Thibodeau's head coach, man, it's a hell of a conundrum right there. But at 6'8", he slides his feet well on defense. And he has transitioned pretty quick from adjusting to the three-point line from summer league to the preseason. That is a very noticeable difference. But hey, we'll see how things pan out. These lineups are definitely going to get a shakeup. There's going to be injuries. Definitely different lineups are going to be kind of more prosperous than others. I want to see how that Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, along with the bench unit, kind of works out. Mikal does have the ability to run that offense. Tibbs can't show all his hands just in the preseason alone. But we'll see. Until next time, you fellas, stay safe. Peace.